Alright, so we're back over at Performance Research in Westerville. We're about ready to load up this Pontiac 455 on the dyno. Hopefully you've watched episodes 1 and 2 of this process in the previous feed. So she's been sitting here for about 2 weeks while we got everything squared away on our end and on the business side of things. So we're going to pull the oil out of this guy, put a new fresh load of oil in it, tighten up a couple of things, and then we'll transfer her over onto the dyno cart, and then we'll be back in touch with you guys momentarily and go over exactly what's going on in the dyno process. So stay tuned.
This will be fun. Next time on Engine Masters. What I'm doing is making a list of things we need to do prior to getting this thing on the dyno cart, such as oil change, which it doesn't look like we got 5 quarts of oil out of it. It looks like maybe we got, I don't know, what do you think? 2.5, 3?
3 maybe?
Maybe 3.
It's still coming out a little bit, but
that's a little alarming, but we're gonna just completely ignore that.
and it is a little black and a little bit sparkly.
Yeah, I don't know if it could get any more black.
So maybe it was running on tar instead of oil.
Because it has magic dust in it.
It's got magic dust.
It does have some sparkly magic dust in it.
We are going to utilize the old school washer jet, which will be fun. There's some things we got to do to it prior to startup. We need to do things such as remove the thermostat because our dyno system has its own water and cooling system. So we don't need that, obviously.
We're going to pull the spark plugs out, make sure those are at least in semi-decent shape. Again, like we talked about in the previous episodes, the idea here is to run this in as true to pulled out fashion as possible. It was running and driving, turning and stopping when we pulled this motor out.
This one's already loose.
And we want to see the actual state of what this thing was in before we start going through the process of rebuilding it. So we're going to run it. Is it wise to do something like this? I'm totally untested motor to throw it under 100% load
No, it's really stupid.
and send it? Probably not. But for all of you YouTube people out there, we're going to do it for you.
This is by far the ugliest motor that has ever been on our engine dyno. By far.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
We've actually never done anything like this. So this is going to be fun.
Or it's going to be expensive and very messy.
But we'll get it on camera, so it'll be super entertaining for you guys.
Right.
Just a pain in the ass for us.
And then I get to clean your dyno room.
That'll be a whole other segment.
Here's Austin filming.
Next time on Engine Masters, dyno room cleanup.
Dyno room cleanup. Squeegeeing the floors and removing chunks of block material.
Yeah.
Bob told me when we brought this over here that if it windows the oil pan, I own it, and if it splits the block in half, I own both halves, which is I'm not entirely sure that's a good thing to hear from my engine builder, but we'll see what she does. So we're gonna button up a couple of things here. We'll change out the oil, not very exciting stuff, and then we'll get this thing transferred over onto the dyno cart, which we'll show you guys in time lapse. And then we'll get her loaded up into the dyno room and move on to things from there. So here we go, back to time lapse.
Just using our handy little camera here, taking a look inside the cylinders. Make sure we don't have any holes in any pistons.
At least to start with.
This is actually the first time any of us have looked inside the motor.
Yeah.
Because
This is the first time these spark plugs have been out of this motor.
Yeah, we know absolutely nothing about this motor,
Actually, look.
which is, well, there's a lot of carbon on the piston. You know, it's been running rich, obviously. Ooh, ooh, ooh. No, that's just a marking. I was actually concerned there for a second.
Is that a hole in the piston?
Well, when they start to burn, that's where it happens.
Well, what we can see from the spark plugs is this has been either running rich or burning oil, or possibly both, for a while. And what we're doing here on the bench is we're just cleaning these spark plugs. They're still going to be the old rusty ones. It's not very pretty.
That's a lot of carbon.
That's a lot of carbon.
Yeah, this one's rich to say the least.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's okay because,
Rich is better than lean.
well, we don't know what to expect, so anything, it is what it is. Might as well take a look in here too, why not? It has regular stamped steel GM rocker arms. Nothing special there. And it appears to have basically, they look like just factory GM springs.
Run-of-the-mill, old-school Pontiac. Tiger Power.
Well, alright then.
Anything that's majorly concerning you, at least
No,
on
not
this
really.
side?
No, I mean, other than the fact that it's it's running rich.
And it's filthy and covered in...
Yeah, I mean, who
years.
knows how many miles are on this thing? We really don't know anything.
Right.
So,
Well, unfortunately, that's something you deal with whenever you buy one of these is, you know, whatever the story is from whoever built it, or bought it, or put it together, or whatever, you know, you never really know.
I don't see anything crazy. I mean, it doesn't look like any valves are hitting the pistons or anything like that. It's just old and dirty and
Schmucky and dirty.
yeah.
As we talked about before, this is a 1972 block and 1976 6X heads. So at some point in time in its last 30 years, somebody has joined two pieces that were not correct together. And the lower oil pan is a different color also. So you actually have three different colors of Pontiac blue on this motor. So again, Lord knows what we're going to find here, but as far as what we can see, it shouldn't blow up on the
I mean, we can't make any guarantees.
tire. And you guys can all see me crying if this thing scatters itself.
It'll probably be fine.
Yeah.
It's just something we've never done, and things like this make me nervous.
Sure.
Just because we really honestly don't know anything about this motor. We really don't. Other than what I just told you now.
Right.
That it's got factory rockers and springs, it appears at least. But we don't know what kind of condition this thing's in. We don't, we don't know how it's put together. We don't know anything.
Well, I know it came out of Virginia.
But we know it runs. We know
It
it,
did.
runs. We know,
It did run when I took it apart. Ran when pulled. If you buy it off Craigslist.
Oh yeah.
So
Every engine on Craigslist ran when pulled.
ran when pulled. I actually pulled this. You guys saw me pull it. You've seen this thing do burnouts.
They also saw it run, yeah.
Right. So we know that this thing ran. Did it run properly? Probably not. Am I concerned about almost everything that I've touched because it looks like it was wired by a fifth grader and there's
That's
questionable
true.
thoughts all over the place?
That's true. The car wasn't done professionally,
No.
to say the least. Put it nicely.
But that's okay because we love it and we're going to make it healthy again. Well, the
Were
distributor
you aware
being
that
backwards too.
If the distributor isn't even, the cap's not even held down right now?
Yeah. It's also in backwards, so it can't back
Of course it is. Of course it's in backwards. Why wouldn't it be?
Why wouldn't it be? Yeah, again, one of those things where you're like, wait a second, something doesn't make sense here.
Yeah, that looks funny. Okay.
Alright, so spark plugs will be back in. Again, we're not cheating. These are the same ones we pulled from over there. We just clean them up a little bit, stick them back in the engine. Make sure that they're not going to blow the seat
No more
apart.
touching.
Right, and then we're going to transfer this thing over the engine cart, bolt everything back together again, change out a couple of pieces, and put her in the dyno.
Okay, so here we are, about to take the flywheel off because when we put the motor on the dyno, we have our own dyno flywheel, specifically for the dyno that bolts onto the motor. And here we are trying to take it off, the one that was on it, or flex plate rather, and it's got 6.58 bolts and 12.11/16 bolts. We thought that was interesting, so we wanted to share it with you guys.
As we've seen in many other instances,
Just one of the many.
header bolts and everything else, this is kind of one of those, it was thrown together with whatever they had that fit in the hole kind of situations. So, yeah, again, one more reason why we're taking this thing apart and putting it better the proper way.
Those particular headers are designed for a Pontiac head with oval port exhaust ports. They're called oval port heads. This particular Pontiac motor has D-port heads, which means not only is the spacing and size of the ports different, but the bolt hole arrangement is also different by a lot. So as you can see, these are some old junk used up headers that we are modifying and making them grow into our exhaust system. So unfortunately we couldn't use the cool headers, but I think we'll be able to make this work. At least well enough to run the thing for now.
Right.
We're going to try to figure out how to get thermocouplers in each primary. Unfortunately, as of now, we're not going to be able to record EGTs, but on the next go-around, I want to make sure that we do have them in there somehow. We'll figure it out so that we can see individual exhaust gas temperatures for all 8 cylinders. But here's where we are now, and it's getting ugly, but I think it's going to work. What do you think, Austin?
So, we didn't show you guys some of the modifications we were doing to get these pipes to work, and I want to show you because Joe was talking about oval port versus D port. So these central ports here, on the inside of these, the center pieces are flat. So these two collectors, see how they come together? Also the bolts are inside here, which if you've watched me in my previous episodes, I hate those two bolts. This is why. So on a D port head, that's how these heads are set up. The exhaust comes out right there, everything's nice and tight, and there's a flat edge in between these two, hence the D. So on an oval port or a round port set of headers, this is what you end up with. Where see how they're circular, everything's nice and spaced. You also have the bolts way outside. So instead of fighting them underneath the collectors, which is how the D port heads are, they're considerably easier to work with. These are his gorgeous Schoenfeld headers, and the last Pontiac they did was an oval port head. So it had the ability to run these nice headers. Unfortunately, this is a little bit out of the purview of what Performance Research usually does. They're more of a high performance, carb engine building shop. So this is a little bit outside their purview. So we're having to modify my existing headers that you saw me remove on a previous episode to work with their dyno. So we've got our piping modified here. Went up to Jegs this morning and got some 90-degree 3-inch bends, and just kind of got creative with cutting and welding to be able to make this all fit. This side is essentially mocked up. We're actually going to cut a plate to be able to seal in here as well, because there's a bung back here in the back where we can run an O2 sensor so we can get our air-fuel ratios, which is really important when you're doing tuning. So we're getting there. It's kind of a, however you'd like to say it, rigging to be able to get this to work. But the nice thing is it's going to be running on a set of headers that are actually built to go in the car. So we'll actually get probably a little bit more of a true number with an actual set of headers versus a dyno set of headers. Like Joe was saying, we're not going to be able to pull exhaust gas temperatures. Typically speaking, you've got individual ports on each one of these things, so we can see individual cylinder temps, which is a great way to be able to figure out if something's running lean or running hot, or if you've got a problem in one cylinder or another. We're not overly concerned about that at this phase, because this thing is probably enough of a basket case that we don't really need that much data on this. But we are going to modify these headers so that next time we come back, once we've blown this engine apart, rebuilt it, put it back together again, we can give you that EGT, and we can do all of our precise tuning, and we can see exactly what we can turn out of this motor. So we're getting close. We had to do a little bit of acetylene heating and bending on this exhaust port over here. This header actually was up against the dyno cart, so when we were going to run it, it would have vibrated against the dyno cart, creating all kinds of problems and all kinds of noise. So we used some acetylene torches here. You can see the kind of the heat marks, and then a pry bar, and just kind of self-clearanced it. So she's going to be back together here shortly. We probably got another hour and a half or so of work. Otherwise, everything else is already done. All the coolant lines are plumbed, fuel lines are plumbed, everything else is good to go. So once we realize what we're going on here with the exhaust, once we get it all figured out and finished, we'll cut back to it and we'll get going from there. Alright, so where we stand at the end of day 2. Unfortunately, we are not running. And as I promised before, we're going to show you this whole painful process from start to finish, including all the headaches and annoyances. So the exhaust is most of the way fixed. We've got our flanges machined, all of our new piping figured out, thanks to Jegs. They got us some 90-degree bends, which we hacked up and made work for our purposes. And then Bob, the Wizard Prophet, machined out some plates that we're going to be able to band clamp onto the exhaust to make sure that all seals off correctly. And it'll still give us access to the O2 sensor readings so we can get our AFRs. Now the neat thing we ran into is we started checking for leaks, and fuel leaks, none whatsoever. Everything's sealed up, everything's great. However, when we pressurize it for coolant, we have a problem. One of the seals in this water pump is weak / leaking. So it starts weeping out of the front weep hole in front of this Pontiac. So we now need to replace the water pump, which is not a big deal. We were going to replace the water pump anyway. You never put together a freshly rebuilt motor with an old, 80-year-old water pump. But it's just one more annoyance, so we got to kind of stop progress here. and move on to day 3, which will be installing the water pump, putting in all of our exhaust piping, which we have fabricated, and then who knows what headache after that. So I want to give you guys another update here on where we are, and we will continue this video tomorrow when it's not tornadoing outside and we have a new water pump to install and new bolts.
I don't like that.
I'm happy.
To conclude this, I am extremely surprised. I did not think it was going to run this well, and I mean, once we finally got spark, it lit right up. And
we didn't show you guys a lot of the pain in this process.
Oh my gosh!
In previous videos, we talked about we wanted to show you everywhere we went through this.
We couldn't put you through that kind of pain.
Yeah, this is day 3, and it's 6:45 p.m. So
this is usually something that takes in and out in a day.
Right.
You
and
know?
this is 3 full days.
This is 3 full man days of screwing around.
Right. And we still have to spend a couple of hours taking it off the dyno.
And some of that is, my fault because I didn't have the stand ready. But we've modified it to where we can get it on and off quicker now. So.
Right.
when we do it the second time around, it'll be done.
There was some custom work that was done, that's for sure. Actually, while we're talking about custom work,
Pretty cool. I like the exhaust.
yeah, let's show you guys what we did for the exhaust work. So we were talking about the header issue with the D-port versus ovals before, and we hacked up the set of terrible headers that were on my car originally, the Chinese no-name who knows what's, and we cut the flanges off, and then Jegs had 90-degree bend, 3-inch mandrel bent pipe. So Joe mangled the hell out of my $30 a piece pipes so we could make some S's, and then Bob and Joe made these badass plates.
We got pictures of them.
Look at that! To seal this exhaust inside of their 5-inch.
And the V-band seals it.
And there's a V-band on the top, and he tack welded them on the back side. And this thing did not leak at all. It's fantastic. But this also gives us the ability to, in the future, be able to just take them off, put them on, however we want to. So it's not technically the same way that it would be with a set of dyno headers, but it really, really worked. And oddly, we didn't really even have any exhaust leaks, which for Pontiac is impressive.
I was expecting the worst.
And we see what it does on a set of street headers. So it's a really honest number.
Yeah, I mean, those are probably close to what you bought.
Yeah. So, cool.
Similar design. And, you know, you don't need giant headers on this thing anyway because it's not going to spin really high.
Right.
So, but yeah, the cool thing is we got that to work so that one of the big things about having a functional exhaust with the dyno program is if it's open header in the room, all you hear is, you know, engine noise. You don't get the exhaust noise. You don't get to hear, you know, if you had a loose rocker or something and it was making a little bit of noise, you wouldn't be able to hear that if you were just running an open header. Having the exhaust take noise out of the room, you can hear the motor a lot better, and that worked out just well. And I didn't hear anything. I mean, the valve train was silent.
Mm-hmm.
Sounded like money. I mean, it was.
Well, it doesn't sound like money because money sounds expensive.
But yeah, there's going to be a lot of money.
Which we've already spent a little bit of money. We'll have a accounting for that here momentarily.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I'm honestly blown away.
Me too.
I'm not expecting this.
I'm very happy.
But this
still looks like shit. Still the ugliest thing you've ever run.
It probably looks worse on the inside than it does on the outside.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
Considering we changed the oil, and the oil, he already changed the oil in the car, and he put a couple thousand miles on it. And we changed the oil, and the oil's black as coal, and so we did an oil change on the dyno, and we switched out the drain plug for the thermocouple deal, and some oil spilled out, and it was black as coal.
Already
just
black
sitting
again.
in the pan.
Yeah. There's some cleaning that's going to need to be done in this thing.
But it ran well. It fired right up and idles at 850 RPM. Just
awesome.
great shit butter.
I am happy. Good job, baby. Good job.